We all want our horses to react from the slightest amount of pressure from our hands and our legs, yet we want to be able to apply as much pressure as we need in order to get our horses to cooperate or to respond. This is where it gets really broad. Okay, I was gonna say tricky, it's not tricky. Well, it is just a very broad spectrum from that point on, but it's very important to understand at the fundamental core what it is that we're after. And what it is that we're after is that we want a horse that responds to feather-light pressure from the hands and legs, yet allows you to use as much pressure as you need in order to get them to cooperate. All right, now we're down to the final principle, and this is going to be by far the most important one. This is going to be the point of resistance. The point of resistance is the resistance that you'll meet when you take hold of your horse's face and come in and push your horse forward with your leg, or you're asking your horse to move away from your leg, or whatever you're asking your horse to do to get away from the pressure, whether you're moving the shoulders, whatever you're doing. At some point in time, you're going to meet resistance, okay? This is very, very important to pay attention to that point of resistance, because it's everything. If you overshot it, this is when you're going to you're going to encourage your horse to brace against you, or cause your horse to brace against you, okay? So it's really important. It's also why it's really, really important to pull very slow. Now we want to get rid of that point of resistance. I want no point of resistance anywhere in my horse's body at all, whatsoever. I want to be able to push and pull as hard as I want or I can, and my horse doesn't resist me whatsoever. That doesn't make him nervous or scared or whatever, okay? So it takes a lot of training, a lot of confidence, and it takes just a lot of work to get to that point, but it's ultimately the main goal. If I hop on a horse and I can lift my hands as high and as much as I want in every direction and push as hard as I want with my legs, and I never meet resistance, then it means that I have 100% control over my horse's body, and that's ultimately where we want to get to. It's just very rare we get to that point with a horse, and it takes a lot of work, but this is what 100% complicity is all about. Now, going back to that point of resistance though, this is why it's really important to pull slow, because by pulling slower with your hand, especially when going fast and the level of adrenaline or intensity levels in the horse's body are higher, then you're going to meet a stronger, harder brace. So that's why that it's very important to not overshot that point of resistance, and by pulling slow, it allows us to feel exactly where that point of resistance is, and from that point on, stay there. Stay at that point of resistance, and then use more leg, shift your hands position, whatever you need to do to adjust in order for the horse to give at that point, so that you can offer that release and ask again. Oh, and this time, good, no point of resistance, because you didn't give a horse a reason to negatively react to that, to that resistance, because you didn't overshot it, and you didn't scare it or punish it for resisting. What you did is you guided him and channeled that energy, used the principle number 1 and channeled that energy properly with good hand and legs position and clear instructions, okay? So again, going back to that point of resistance, you're going to meet that point of resistance in every single thing that you do. From leading your horse on the ground, whenever you lead your horse and it's a young horse and it's never had a halter, and you halter break in it, and then you apply pressure on the lead rope and that horse goes, whoa. So there you met a point of resistance. So again, if you pull fast or too fast, too hard on a young horse, or on a horse that's not really well halter broke, and you pass that point of resistance, what you're going to get a harder pull back against that resistance, because of that, fight or flight mode just really kicks in hard in horses, especially in young horses or uneducated horses. So what you're going to do is that when you feel that resistance, you're going to stay at that point of resistance, and then add a little bit of pressure, sometimes either with the voice, with a little whip, whatever helps you. Just increase the level of pressure just enough for the horse to give to that point of resistance without overshooting it and causing your horse to brace against it. Okay, so this is what is really important. Now, having the tools to help your horse pass that point of resistance whenever you meet it and when you're training your horses. This is why a solid foundation in a horse is crucial. This is why it's really important. And this is why I find that sometimes people who don't have enough control over the horse's body with their legs or enough forward motion, when they feel that meet that point of resistance with their hand, they'll rely on then bumping the horse off the bridle using their hands in order to get rid of that point of resistance. And you're okay. And get rid of that point of resistance. And this is where it's really important to understand that you know that there are no shortcuts to it. Okay. And I think that having really clear hand and leg position, really good really good feel over that point of resistance and reacting to it accordingly is going to be really, really important. Okay, so let me give you an example. So I'm going to send him here the trot. Okay, and I'm going to channel that energy through its diagonal, and I'm going to get 100% control over his body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift my hand, push with my legs. Okay, see there, I feel there's a little bit of resistance to my leg, a little bit of resistance to my hand, and if you heard me, I went, okay, so that was my way to add a little bit extra pressure in order to offer the release and get my horse to give at that point of resistance. So I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep setting my horse up and push its energy through its diagonal, off my outside leg, forward motion, channeling that energy from that outside hind through that inside front. Look where he's going, and bring all its energy into his body. There. This time I pushed a little harder with my leg to create a little bit more of an obvious point of resistance. And as you saw it, I got a little bit of an overreaction, which is okay. At that point in time, I kept my leg steady and kept pushing, but insisted with my voice, which is often a really good way to add a little bit of pressure in order to get a horse to give when you meet the point of resistance, rather than increasing hand or leg pressure. It's rarely going to be the solution to increase hand or leg pressure. The solution is very often going to be to use a little more leg, and I think that anyone that's been riding horses long enough has heard this probably way more than they should, is more leg, more leg, more leg. It is the number one go-to things to do whenever your horse is not doing what it should with its front end, is because you need to have more leg, more forward motion. I always say when working young horses, in order to really teach them how to channel that pressure and that energy through their diagonal, you should always work in second gear. Always go faster than the cruise control, than the first gear pace. Okay, always be driving, always be pushing, always be setting up your horse for something whenever you use your hand and your legs. Okay, so earlier I was demonstrating how I was teaching my horse to give to hand pressure by just making him give to me in my hands by pushing him forward with both legs, pretty neutral, not so much in diagonal. So this is just teaching my horse how to get away from pressure and how to channel that energy from its neck into his body. And it's just but it's not really showing my horse in which position to put its body. Okay, so it's really important to be a lot more clear with our hand and body position when doing that. Okay, so this is going to be how I want my horse to channel its energy, is when I lift my hands to go there. I want my horse to drive from that hind end through that left diagonal there. And when I switch direction, I want my horse to do the same thing the other way. Okay, so now I'm meeting resistance. He's resisting in my hand, and he's not channeling his energy perfectly. It's not flowing perfectly to it through its right diagonal. So I'm just going to stay here, be very clear what I'm after, keep my hands right at that point of resistance, and just insist a little bit more with my leg, adjusting my position until I feel my horse. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's all you want, and then I can offer my release. I'm going to ask it again a few times until we're on the same page here, and it's very clear where I want him to go when my hands come here. Okay, so again, I'm setting him up for something. That was a good transition, good diagonal transition, channeling its energy from the right diagonal through to the left diagonal. A little bit too much hip movement, too much hip inside here off my outside leg. So what I did is I stopped applying pressure with my outside leg and just used my legs and sent him a little bit more forward, but kept my hands in the same place till I feel that he follows his nose better. There. Okay. See there, I'm at resistance. I'm meeting resistance. My first reaction was to increase leg pressure, keep the same amount of hand pressure, and use a little bit pressure from clucking from my mouth in order to encourage them to try a little harder, but without putting more hand pressure. Now, if I'm doing this with a horse that is just too heavy on me or too pushy on my hands, well, I'm not going to be, so that means that that point of resistance is not really caused by stress or anxiety, or the horse isn't scared or nervous or whatever, it's just lazy. At that point in time, what I'm going to do is increase my hand pressure, and I can sometimes pull pretty hard, okay, and I'm going to make my horse a little bit more uncomfortable, okay, by putting more hand pressure, so that he's more tempted to look for an outlet, look for something to give me, and then I can offer that release. Again, my goal is to be able to get that give with just my, a feather-light amount of pressure with my fingertips, but at the same time, I want to be able to pull as hard as I can, or as hard as I want or need to, in order for him to give me its body fully, okay? You can't expect your horse to always give its body 100% by just using your reins with your fingertips, okay? Sometimes we'll have to bring our hands a little bit closer to us here and be a lot stronger with our legs and push harder with our hands in order to get the horse to give to that amount of pressure, so that we don't meet that point of resistance when we pull harder, okay? And that allows us to get our horse into a better working position. Okay, and that's going to be the same whether I'm doing straight lines, fast circles, counter canter, setting my horse up for lead change. This is just me putting my horse in the best possible position to execute something, and I need to be able to do this as effectively and easily as possible. I want to be able to do it with just a light pressure of my calf and the slight amount of pressure of my fingertips. But if I'm not obtaining that reaction instantly, then through using the principles that we just discussed and being a good judge of the reason that we're meeting resistance, how to react to it is going to be key here. Okay, so I hope that this shines some light on how to use pressure release when training your horses. And again, now that you have this in mind and these principles in mind, go back and watch those other tools and exercises and training drills that we do in order to really develop body control. And I think that a lot of it is going to make a lot more sense. So go ahead and try it on your horses. If you have any questions or any light bulb moments that you want to share with anybody else, please always feel free to reach out to me so that we can share with everyone. I'm happy to criticize you and watch you ride your horse and give you some tips and pointers. So be involved. I'm open to all of your inquiries and questions, and this has been a fun video to make, so I hope that you enjoyed it. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video.